Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Wheel of Time episode discussion. And today I have the privilege of discussing what I just watched, which is Season 3, Episode 4 of the Wheel of Time on Prime, titled The Road to the Spear. Um, Boy, do I have a lot to say. This one was a treat. The long awaited Rhuidean trials are finally here. Rand and Moiraine head to fulfill their perspective threads of the pattern. Avienda is finally forced to face her path to becoming a wise one, and the rival Shido are introduced, among a lot of background lore and things that kind of go on. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a lot on paper, and if you watch the episode without any initial book knowledge, then maybe this one was a bit out there for you. But as someone that knew what was going on, I was kind of stuck on the edge of my couch for the duration of the episode. I don't think I blinked from the time Rand and Moiraine crossed that line of spears until the credits rolled. For anyone that's new, I'm going to essentially do video essay format for the entire episode. In the past, I've done scene reactions, but I'm finding it far more fun this season to go back and really peel through the scenes and actually talk about how they make me feel and the impact they have on the series as a whole. I'll try to take my time to explain some of the more intricate flashback scenes, as I know I have some non-readers in my personal life that watch my channel, that are watching the show and enjoying it, but every now and then there's some stuff that is a little bit out there. And I know a lot of people won't make it to the end of this video, and that's understandable, so I'll get to this little tidbit out of the way, since I feel it's the most important takeaway from this episode. I'm not sure exactly what it is this season that's making it so much more enjoyable to me, but for these first 4 episodes, they've been my favorite stretch of the series so far. Until this week, Season 1, Episodes 1 through 3 were my favorite cluster of episodes, and I'd essentially watched those together almost like a movie. And that was what I found myself rewatching. There are episodes sprinkled throughout the seasons 1 and 2 that I still enjoy, but there was almost always a follow-up episode or a few events in those episodes that made me scratch my head so hard on the decision-making process that it took me out of the experience and I didn't want to re-watch it. There's even a number of episodes I didn't even make videos about because I just couldn't find the excitement and motivation to talk about it because I was kind of bummed out about what I saw. With Season 3, it's like they introduced another writer to the room that's checking these 80% complete scripts and bringing them up to 95, 100%. As I've said before, the world building required in this show is no easy task. And then to only have 16 episodes to get us to the end of that Dragon Reborn plot, which sounds impossible, I can kind of understand that. But even with that understanding, we still had these clunky, condensed character arcs, what I felt were mischaracterizations of certain characters, out of place exposition that might as well have just been like a narrator voiceover because it felt so out of place. And in my opinion, some poor screen time decisions regarding certain characters. With Season 3, it seems like they finally have the leg room to tell the story more fluidly and are sticking to the more strict roadmap. Unsurprisingly, it's paying dividends for them. Characters feel more grounded, motivations make sense, there is a visual growth happening, and the scenes are just overall better and more enjoyable. After Episode 3, I was praying they would continue this process for Episode 4, and they did. So now I'm going to say the same for, I hope they keep doing it for Episode 5. But let's get into it. I'll call this a non-spoilers video, but it's still kind of a loose spoiler because if I'm talking about how a character's future story arc is being affected, then you can kind of deduce that maybe they're not going to die in this episode or something like that. But anyways, with that being said, let's dive into the journey that was Episode 4. Rand and Lan are training swords during their off time, and as the gang heads to Rhuidean, they've just got a lot of kind of setup going on. Rand explains the concept of the flame in the void that was taught to him by his father, which is a constant for Rand throughout his struggles, throughout his journey, becoming the Dragon Reborn, all this stuff. He kind of has to sit back, focus, and kind of put all his emotions away. That will be a reoccurring theme as time goes on. It's nice to see him and Lan finally getting some bonding time, and from what I've seen, it really feels like they've jumped Rand's maturity like 2 years since Season 2, which to be honest is kind of in line how his character jumps in the books happen between like Book 2 to Book 3 to Book 4. He seems more confident and motivated, like he has come around to accepting what must be done, and has set his stubborn Two Rivers mind in just to the task of being the best Dragon Reborn he can be. As I stated before, The world building feels more fluid. They use the Aiel Wise Ones and Moiraine and Egwene to give a further background on the Aiel prophecies, as well as a path forward for the coming storyline. One thing I couldn't understand is why everyone was so worked up about the sparring scene. I don't think it's out of character for Rand to be caught off guard. Aviendha knocks him to the ground. He's standing a little too confident. Aviendha takes him to the ground in this episode, and then later in the series, maybe a similar thing happens. And Rand counters her just to show some like character growth, or we can show how he's grown as a fighter, or he's more confident, he's being more careful. Also, Aviendha is a dick to him in the books at this point, so I think it fits, to be honest with you. As for her fighting with Lan, it really seems like Lan was just kind of chilling around during this. I in no way interpret it as Aviendha being on his level. There were some specific choreography decisions that seemed out of place, so I understand some of people's frustration. Like, if you're upset about that, I get it. At the end of the day, this scene, I think, only existed to have her being pushed towards becoming a wise one. It kind of adds some emotion to her having to give up the spear if she is a talented fighter that can at least kind of toe the line and play around with Lan. You can see the empathy Amiss has for her as she breaks her spears and sends her off. She has tears welling around her eyes. But Aviendha finally accepts her orders and she heads into Rhuidean. Which, for a quick note, I'm glad people don't just have to get naked for this. That's an okay change for me from the books. Then we get Rand and Moiraine kind of sitting around talking to each other. And the scene where Rand tells Moiraine she's never tried to help him also got some criticism, but in my opinion, Rand being this stubborn sheep herder, not being able to see the sacrifices she has made, is extremely on brand. And by the end of the episode, as he carries her out, I think we see a tick of appreciation towards Moiraine from Rand. And more than that, he's carrying her almost lifeless corpse out of there. Quick side note, can anyone tell me if Moiraine is still bound by her oaths? I'm under the impression she's not. From what happened in season 2, but I can't quite remember what the official consensus was, and this is from her conversation where she still doesn't lie to Rand, which is cool. So I thought maybe she's just trying to be truthful, which is cool. I appreciate it, Moiraine. The gang finally arrives at Rhuidean, and we get this wide panning shot of the city covered in a thick mist with these buildings peeking up through the tops. I thought it was a decent look, although it did kind of remind me of the Shadar Logoth city from a distance. I'll have to go back to season 1 and see if any of the skyline looks copied. I think I've noticed that, like, a thing with a lot of the cities and stuff in this show, they seem very, like, the insides will kind of look intricate, like the actual set designs, but like the cities from afar look very, like, plain and almost like copy pasted from each other, and then they just rotate some of the buildings around. But regardless, head to the next scene. The Shido are finally introduced, so that's going to be fun. And I don't really have much to say on them at this point, other than I like Couladin's actor so far. He seems like he understands the role and also fits the part very well. Every time Rand does something that falls out of custom, he gets like extremely offended and he just wants to go. I thought they did a really good job with this scene, like showing that. And I loved how when Couladin went to attack Rand, Ruard's got his blade drawn before he can even take a step, and Lan has his sword ready to go as well. And what I missed on my first watch through, after Amiss stuns him with the power, Moiraine and Egwene exchange a look with each other. I totally forgot that they likely didn't know that the Wise Ones could channel up until this point. So they're both kind of sharing this realization with each other. And I'm interested if we're going to spend some time on that plot point going forward. But a good realization nonetheless. Also, the look Rand and Egwene share when Amiss tells him that their paths don't align. I felt like there could have been a little bit more emotion there, but I guess at the same time, a lot's going on, so maybe they don't have the emotional bandwidth to have a sad breakdown moment. So I'm guessing we're going to get that in the next episode. Haven't watched the preview yet. But anyways, I'm going to place a pin in that. The point Amiss makes about knowing the future and how trying to avoid it or make it happen can have dire consequences. So everyone just keep that one in the back of our minds going forward. So I think what I'll do now is I'll discuss Rand and Moiraine's journey separately instead of going back and forth between them. For Moiraine, I'll be a bit more brief I've said this before in videos, and funnily enough, my sister texted me the exact same thing after she watched it. Moiraine's journey kind of feels like obviously Wheel of Time came first, I think, but it reminds me of the Doctor Strange. I saw 14 million futures, and we only won in one of them. In her visions in the ring, she sees thousands and thousands of different realities, turnings of the wheel. I won't describe each of them, but in some of them, she's the Amerlin. Some of them, Rand is under her control. Some of them, he is free. Some of them, they're lovers. All of these different possibilities played out. It was truly something to watch. I only wish some of the scenes lingered a little bit longer. They went through all this effort to film them with this amazing costuming, and then it was kind of hard to see with like the rotating upside down camera effect, let alone how fast it was going by. But then the visions take a turn, and Moiraine routinely finds herself being killed by Lanfear brutally over and over and over and over and over again. One has to think that in all of these lifetimes, she is inevitably killed by Lanfear. How is she going to escape it in this one? You got to feel for Moiraine in this situation. She's essentially being careened towards this end result, and the man she's doing it all to protect and guide doesn't understand at all. Before I jump to Rand's part of the story, though, I once again need to point out that the exposition in this episode is much smoother, a common theme from this season. A lot less in your face, and it flows better in the scenes. We have the Tree of Life introduced, the root of the Aiel War, and Layman's Sin all in one episode. And instead of being clubbed in the head with this information piece, it kind of felt like a relaxing walk in the park learning all of this. Which, by the way, if my non-readers didn't realize, that tree in that courtyard is one of those saplings you see them like taking out in the wagons in one of the flashbacks. There were a ton of like Easter eggs and informations in the scenes with Rand, but I don't want to just recap them all for an hour. So I'll probably just give a general what I really liked from all of them. Just roughly recap for my non-readers. What's going on here is that they stated that every step Rand takes through these columns, he's going farther back into his ancestral history. So it starts with his father on Dragonmount discovering his dead mother. Baby Rand is gone, which is heartbreaking. He's feeling that as he's walking through the columns. And then they keep going farther back in time to show how the Aiel came to be. This culture based on war, violence, pride, was once a peaceful culture that was sworn not to fight. They broke their oaths to become the modern Aiel. And so when the soon-to-be clan chiefs learn this, many of them cannot handle it, and they go insane, which they show us with Couladin's brother kind of tripping balls in front of Rand as he goes by, ripping his eyes out. The original people of the Leaf, or whatever they were called back in time, were entrusted with protecting these saplings, and as well as this kind of white orb that they had going on. They had to take care of that, which we know to be the Sarkaran now, which, by the way, a sidestep in the conversation, we might have to talk about the implications of that plot point at the end of this video, or maybe we'll leave it for whenever it becomes a thing. But that's going to be interesting how that affects the storyline with it just being that in Kalendor. We go back to the breaking of the world when all the men were going mad, and in the background you can see these massive pillars of light and dust in the cloud, which I believe is where there are currently male channelers going insane from the taint. They're burning themselves out and literally causing the earth to move and churn around them before dying. They even go farther back to when civilization was basically like Wakanda levels of advanced, and Lanfear was a good guy. There's this floating orb in the sky, but something goes wrong. We see back in the day, Moiraine, who is mentioned in this, was Lanfear. They say that before she became evil, got a whiff of some greater power beyond the male and female halves of the source, and in their efforts to tap into that power, they set the Dark One from outside the pattern free. That's what all that staticky shit is. That's the Dark One, basically being able to now get in and affect this world from outside the pattern. So the Forsaken and the Dark One, they came to be. The Aes Sedai fought them to seal the Dark One away, and the other Forsaken, they succeeded, but in this process, the male half of the source was tainted. So now all the men were ticking time bombs, and they all went crazy and basically caused so much damage and destruction in the world that the advanced cities and technologies were wiped from the earth, and people were forced to build back from scratch. The costume and makeup department did an amazing job with the many faces of Josha. The set pieces that these events all took place within felt like I was there on the journey with Rand. I thought originally that the spear the one dude was holding outside a Rhuidean flashback caused the fog, and I was like, oh, is that the Sarkhan? No. That I think appears to have just been Latra channeling with the Sarkhanan from inside the city before they went there. Also, I realized on the second watch through that his was the first spear in that lineup outside the city. That's a nice little added detail that somehow I didn't notice the first time around. Also, we are getting a sneak peek at how powerful this Sarkhanan is, as Latra is able to do all this advanced channeling with it. The flashback scene where past Rand receives a Sarkhanan from young Latra, when I saw those columns of light in the back, I got really excited. Basically, I'm both excited and a little frustrated, to be honest. I'm excited for what might come if they do like a loose Theron going mad opening, but I also feel like something like that should have come at the very beginning of the show, so viewers knew why they should care about the Dragon Reborn. You wouldn't need all the clunky exposition like that they have in the opening scene of Moiraine putting her stuff out and going out. If you had kind of showed this dude nuking the countryside and kind of, I think, stuck to that transition they do in Eye of the World or something like that. The introduction of the Dragon Reborn, a lot of people just that I know they didn't care. Anyways, moving on. I love that they had that stuff going on in the background as the horse carriages and stuff going on. It kind of shows how urgent what was happening was. The final flashback with the rat tail Rand and the goatee, which was certainly a choice, was something. There was certainly an aura that the cracks in the pattern gave off that just felt evil, like the effects and the sound. I thought they did a really good job with that. Also, not Lanfear basically telling him to not come to school tomorrow before he got sent down and joined his family before basically the world ended. What a nice lady, but maybe that's kind of showing that there is something underneath that dark heart of hers that they'll try to bring out later in the show. Another comment that I somehow missed early on, both reading and in the books, I didn't realize the orb that's up in the sky is like the ship they were on, and they were using that to drill into the pattern. For some reason, I always thought the orb was like a weird device in the sky that they didn't know about, and they drilled into the orb, and that released the Dark One. Feel free to explain that one to me. Maybe I'll go back and watch a lore video or reread, because that one was a bit out there always to me, but this kind of makes it make a lot more sense in my head. But anyways, Rand wakes up after surviving the onslaught, and he's got the dragon tattoos on his arm, marking him as the Kara Karn. Also, maybe I'm overthinking this, but Aviendha also saw a million futures, and I'm wondering if she saw what her book storyline is, and seeing Rand now, she's struggling to kind of comprehend that, especially with certain changes that the show has made. If that was what's going on, I thought Aviendha's actress did a great job kind of having that like bewildered, almost fear of Rand. Also, I'm wondering if Moiraine masked the bond, or if Lan can feel her emotion of dying over and over and over again. Can he feel that in like rapid succession? Like the millions of deaths and whatever over the 7-day period that Moiraine was gone, is he basically just getting death. That would suck. But our episode closes with Rand and Moiraine leaving Rhuidean in one piece, albeit a very tattered piece. I can't help but feel a little emotional seeing Rand look down at Moiraine. Maybe he's starting to realize what she is doing for this world and that he's kind of being a jerk to her. But it's Rand. He's stubborn from the Two Rivers, so you never know. I haven't watched the preview for the next episode yet, but I can't wait to see how they're going to build off all of this. The Tanchico plotline needs to start moving. The White Tower needs to start scheming. And a lot of stuff needs to happen in the next 4 episodes for this story to keep moving. Once again, I'm really enjoying this season so far, and when I think about it, it's not even like it's groundbreaking stuff from the Amazon crew. It's just that they are finally telling the story that RJ wrote, and sticking as closely to it as they can, while rightfully having to condense this marathon of a story. hopefully they continue to stick to it and they only get better at polishing off what they have. I think one thing that stands out is that this episode was serious. There weren't moments for this metaphoric laugh track to happen, where they kind of just randomly insert stuff into scenes that don't need it. And I hope we can kind of stick to this trend going forward. Anyways, I've gone on long enough. The acting in this episode was great. The set designs were great. The costumes were great. Awesome scene selection. Overall, awesome episode. Yeah, I've gone on long enough. Honestly, very excited for episode 5, which comes out in like 2 days now because I've been behind, but my weekends are finally free. I'm caught up on the episodes and I'm ready to go. So I will see you. Maybe I'll do an episode 5 preview anyways, but I don't know. Regardless, I'll see you in a couple days. Thank you for watching. Let's talk Wheel of Time in the comments. And yeah, have a good day.